I have the greatest honor to welcome to the stage tonight the hardest working woman or man in Congress. She fights for us each and every day. Please make some noise for our very own Congresswoman Marjorie Greene.
I have to tell you, I am thrilled to be here with you all and just so happy to talk to you about things that are happening in our country and what happens on a day-to-day basis in Washington, D.C., or maybe really what we should say is what doesn't happen in Washington. And it feels so appropriate and fitting to me to be giving this town hall here in Lafayette High School, in a school where our children are educated. And I say that because I'm a mom. My kids are grown now, but it's really the next generation and the generations that follow them are the ones that I'm really worried about. And we have a lot of reasons to worry for our children and for their future. You see, and this didn't happen just recently in the past few years, but it's happened slowly over the decades. Our leaders in Washington, many leaders in our states and all over the country have really lost their way. And this is something that we all know to be true and we understand it, but the effects are starting to be felt greatly in the last few years. And it seems like every which direction we look, every issue we talk about, it seems to be a crisis. And it seems to be a crisis that is to the point where it's unfixable. But I have to tell you, and I have this feeling inside of me, and I've been sharing it with people, I don't feel hopeless for America. I don't. And I think a lot of people do, looking at all the situations we have. So let's talk through that. The biggest one is our debt. We are $31 trillion in debt. That is an amount of money that none of us can comprehend. None of us even know what 31 trillion would look like, how to ever earn that much money and how to ever spend that much money. But Washington, D.C. spent that much money. In the past 2 years under in Joe Biden's presidency, when Nancy Pelosi was Speaker of the House, and I have to say, thank God she's not Speaker of the House. Yeah, I'll say a little bit on that. That was kind of like, you know, in the land of Narnia, when the ice started melting and the Ice Queen started losing her power. Yeah. The sun shines in Washington, D.C. a lot more often now that Nancy Pelosi is not the Speaker. So that's a good thing. But it's not out as bright as we want it yet. We've got a little ways to go. But in the first 2 years under Joe Biden, under Nancy Pelosi's speakership, they spent $7 trillion. $7 trillion. And that was on top of the horrible debt that we already had. And that's both parties, right? We could blame both parties. Republicans and Democrats, irresponsible spending for decades have led us to where we are now. But it was the last 2 years that really took us over. And now in Washington, we are looking at having to raise the debt ceiling again, which is absurd. It is absolutely absurd that we're having to even think about that, because they should have never spent this much money to begin with. And I don't know if you guys watch 60 Minutes. I don't usually watch it that often. But I was recently featured on 60 Minutes, and there was an argument I had with Leslie Stahl and the argument was about the spending. I don't know if you guys caught it. And she was trying to convince me to raise taxes. Now, what do you guys think about raising taxes?
No!
That's what I told her. I said, we don't have a revenue problem in Washington, D.C., Leslie. We have a spending problem. We have a spending problem. And this is something that everyday Americans, people with good common sense, like everyone in this room, totally understands. But that concept is lost on those in our society, and many of them, unfortunately, are in Washington, and people that just aren't connected to everyday Americans. Unfortunately, like Leslie Stahl, I wish she did understand it. I wish she understood how hard you work for your money. I wish she understood what your day-to-day sacrifices are to save for retirement and to support your family and pay your taxes and be able to make ends meet. But people like that are, we could just say they're educated, affluent, and bored, just don't understand the real crisis we have in America with our debt. And it's tremendous. And so I want to give you a little bit of good news on where we are now. Republicans, now that we control the House, that means we control the checkbook. But that also means we have a great responsibility. It doesn't mean that everything's going to be safe and all the problems are going to be solved, because the big giant hole that Washington put us all in is not, we're not going to be able to dig out of that hole in 2 years. And we're not going to be able to dig out of it in 4 years. Maybe 10 years, I'm not sure. This is a big, deep hole we have to get ourselves out of. But where we are at so far, and we're working on the budget, is we've been able to cut $4 trillion out of it. And that is something that we can be really excited about. But we're not finished. So we are still working on the details of the budget, and that'll be something that you'll be seeing coming out pretty soon. But I'm excited with the progress that we have made so far. Now, let's talk about, now that we're in a school, let's talk about our kids. And this is an issue that is troubling me greatly, because I just completely cannot understand it. Well, you know, last Congress, I got in an argument with my neighbor across the hall. I don't know if you've heard me tell this story before, but, she's not there anymore, y'all. She lost her election. This was Democrat Congresswoman Marjorie Newman. Now, she and I got in an argument because she didn't believe the same things I believed about gender, and which is really just the truth about gender, is there's only two of them.
Yes.
Right? There's male and female, and there's, you know, just like there's two sexes, but they've created this whole gender as a, you know, a whole idea that apparently you can pick and choose whatever you want these days. And so we got in an argument. It was on the Equality Act, and she has a biological son that's an adult. I think he was 24 then, so he's got to be 26 now, that identifies as a woman. And I've got two daughters in their 20s, and a son that knows he's a male. And but my daughters, you know, I felt like here she was pushing for her son and any man to be able to identify as a woman and go in our bathrooms, play in our sports, and for that to be okay. And so we got in an argument about male and female. So anyways, I have a sign that I put outside my office starting last Congress, and you wouldn't believe that we have to do these things in Washington, but we do. And my sign says, there's only two genders, male and female, trust the science. I mean, I thought that science is something that Democrats can understand, or really anyone can understand, but it's hard for some people. So believe it or not, this is still an ongoing battle, but it's affecting our children more and more.
Yes.
And, you know, there was a benefit that came from the COVID shutdowns, and that is that when our kids were forced to stay home from school, parents all over the country actually found out what their kids were being taught, right? And they found out what children are being taught, and they found out about curriculums, and they found out about books in the libraries. And I think that was probably one of the best things that could happen. But since parents have found out that there is gender-confusing books, there's books that tell these lies to kids that they can change their gender, there is education for children that is grooming, in my opinion. I consider anytime you sexualize children and they're being groomed to believe things about gender that's not true, that is exactly what pedophiles do. It's the same behavior. And great schools like Lafayette High School need to be a place where kids can be kids. Kids can learn a good education, not be groomed, not be brainwashed, not be confused to believe things about other people and about themselves. And I'm telling you right now, our biggest battle is not the debt. I know that sounds hard to believe, but our biggest battle is the battle to protect our children from this great lie that is being told to them, because this lie is so destructive. You wouldn't believe how destructive it is. And I know it's hard to imagine here in Walker County how bad it is, but I'm going to tell you right now, they are being deceived even down at kindergarten and first grade levels to believe these things. And in schools all over the country, they're being taught that they have to accept their classmate, that their classmate is not a boy, but it's a girl, and they have to refer to him as by a girl and a girl name and use she and her, when it's completely wrong, and it's confusing to these kids as they're growing up. But I want to tell you, while we are battling on issues in Washington, D.C., like the debt, which I'm telling you, that is a huge issue, and the debt has driven inflation that is hurting every single one of us. It's like a tax on all of us, costing us at the grocery store, at the gas station, with our bills, anything we go to buy, clothes, shoes, you name it. Inflation is causing that to be unaffordable for many people, and that's caused by the overspending in Washington. Believe it or not, where you see our bigger battles in Washington is on this very issue of gender. Now, the reason why I'm talking to you about this is because it's such a growing, I don't even know what to call it. It's not a phenomenon. It's evil. It's madness. Yes, thank you. It is madness. It's completely evil. And just last week, one of the leaders of the squad, you know those lovely ladies. Well, their squad was a group of women in the Democrat Party, but really it's the Progressive Caucus. Now, the Progressive Caucus is not just 5 or 6 or 10 Democrats. It's well over 100 Democrats are the progressives. And they have a solid control on the Democrat Party and how they vote. And one of them, Pramila Jayapal, she's the co-chair of the Progressive Caucus. She introduced a resolution that's called the Trans Bill of Rights. Yeah. I know it seems absurd, but let me tell you how serious this is. The Trans Bill of Rights, if it were to be passed, and it can't be passed this Congress because we're not going to give it the light of day. Right. It will not be able to be voted on. But I'll tell you right now, if in 2024 they win back the House, that bill will be taken to the floor. Democrats will bring it to the floor, and they will pass it. I know they'll pass it because much of the language written in this resolution, I've seen it in other bills. So it's not new, but it is put together in one package, and they will pass it. What it does is it will amend the Civil Rights Act, and it will make trans people a protected class of people. They will have more rights than any of us in this room, unless you decide to be one of them. Now, what that means is it will take away your religious freedom and your religious liberties. So if you're a Christian or whatever your religion is, and you say, no, I'm sorry, I can't call this person by their preferred pronouns, or no, we cannot provide them a marriage in our church, or whatever service. Or let's say you're an employer and you have no problem hiring someone because you simply want good people to work for you, to do a good job. You're hiring people for the job that they're doing, but yet a person that is trans decides they want to demand things from you as an employer based on their sexual identity, and you say, no, I'm sorry, I'm a Christian, and that doesn't fit in our workplace here. Well, you could be sued, or you could be charged with a hate crime. And your religious freedoms will be thrown out the window. It also codifies Roe versus Wade, and this is a term that we hear from Democrats constantly. They say, we want to codify Roe versus Wade. That means they want to make it by federal law, abortion to be legal in every single state. In Georgia, we passed the heartbeat bill, right? And we severely limited the number of abortions that can be performed based on when a fetal heartbeat is found. Well, that would totally destroy our law here in Georgia, or any other state law that has restricted abortion or completely gotten rid of it. They want to make it a federal law that you got to provide an abortion everywhere. The Trans Bill of Rights would also force children to be educated about trans people, their history, and their rights. So you're talking about the education system, whether Lafayette High School, Walker County, the state of Georgia, or wherever said, I'm sorry, our parents have voted and decided that they do not want this type of curriculum or education taught here in their school that their tax dollars pay for, or their private school that they pay for. The Trans Bill of Rights would completely destroy parents' rights, which we as Republicans have a very hard time with, because we just passed the Parents' Bill of Rights. And we as Republicans in our Parents' Bill of Rights gives parents the right to choose their children's curriculum and education and speak to the school board about how their children are educated and treated. But the Trans Bill of Rights totally destroys that. And it does so much more. And the reason why I'm talking to you about this is because this is a growing movement. And it is, believe it or not, in its infancy, but it is a big growing movement, because it's not just supported by some Hollywood people or by some Democrats. It is solidly supported by the entire Democrat Party.
Absolutely.
And I can tell you I know that for a fact because Joe Biden, the President of the United States, who is the leader of the Democrat Party, has completely wrapped his arms around and embraced this ideology. He has declared that even minors and children should have the right to so-called gender-affirming care, which is the right to have puberty blockers, the right to take hormone therapy, and the right to have surgeries like mastectomies, hysterectomies, and castration so that they can physically identify as their chosen gender. And this is before they're 18 years old, before they graduate from high school, before they're old enough to join the military, by nicotine products, by alcohol, of course, and even get a tattoo, put ink permanently on their body. Joe Biden and the Democrat Party wants them to be able to receive gender-affirming care, and the Trans Bill of Rights would force you to pay for it.
No.
That's right. So I want to tell you about this because I'm very proud of a bill I introduced last Congress. It's called the Protect Children's Innocence Act. My legislation was the very first legislation introduced in the entire country that would completely stop gender-affirming care on anyone under the age of 18. And the reason why this bill is so important is because as Republicans, we have to be the party that is completely dedicated to protecting our children. And protecting our children is everything to do with their mind, their body, and their spirit. And there's no greater protection that we can provide is to stop this ideology. So it's very important. I'm going to keep working on that bill until I get it passed in Washington, D.C. Because in my opinion, I can tell in your opinion, and our values here in Georgia's 14th District, but not just here in Georgia's 14th District, all over the country, it's not just a Republican or Democrat idea or even independent. It is wholly supported that this gender affirming care is a medical industry that should not exist for kids.
Absolutely.
So I want to tell you a few good things that have happened before I start taking questions. We have completely cut off all the funding for Joe Biden's $87,000 IRS audit. That is the power of the purse, ladies and gentlemen. Adam Schiff, Ilhan Omar, and Eric Swalwell have been effectively kicked off of committees. Appreciate that because I am back on committees. I serve on the Oversight Committee, Homeland Committee, and the COVID Select Committee.
All right.
These are great committees and we're doing a lot of work. Now, here's one we already knew about. Y'all already knew this, I already knew this, but we officially did it because sometimes you have to officially do things. We voted to end the national COVID emergency. And apparently it's one of the things that Joe Biden agreed with because he decided to declare it's over as well. So at least there's a little bit of agreement in Washington. We had to vote. You're not going to believe we had to vote on this. Republicans had to pass a resolution in Congress. We voted to force government employees, you know, the people you pay, to go back to work.
Yes.
Yeah, to go back to get out of the house and put on your grown-up clothes, you know, the ones you can wear out in public and go show up at work instead of staying at home. So that was something that we did.
That's a good thing.
Couldn't believe we had to do that. We voted to ban the sale of our strategic petroleum reserves to China. And to limit the drawdown of the Strategic Petroleum Reserve until the Department of Energy develops an actual plan, a plan would be nice, to increase the percentage of federal lands leased for oils and gas production. Because that's really important. We actually voted to prevent illegal aliens from voting in Washington, D.C. elections. Because the city council and the mayor, the lovely mayor of Washington, D.C., wants all the illegal aliens to vote in our nation's capital.
No,
Imagine
they
that.
should vote anywhere.
Criminals in jail can also vote.
No.
Yeah, unless you're probably a January 6th defendant. I digress. So we also passed the Parents' Bill of Rights. I told you about that. That's a really big deal. We created the select committee to handle China. That one needs a lot of work on there. And again, I told you I serve on the COVID committee. But we also have a very important committee, one to watch, which is the Committee on Government Weaponization. Weaponization, I want to talk about that real quick, just to wrap it up. I went to New York City last week. The reason why I went is because there's a certain DA in Manhattan that was, you guys know about him.
Yeah. No, we know.
Alvin Bragg. Alvin Bragg is was supported and funded by George Soros. That's another one that I think we should throw out of America. And all his money to go with it. So Alvin Bragg, Manhattan DA, decides to spend his tax dollars and resources from his district attorney's office not to prosecute the incredible amount of crime in Manhattan that his taxpayers are paying him to prosecute, right? No, he decides to collude with some folks in Joe Biden's Department of Justice and come up with a way, any kind of creative way he possibly could, to decide to arrest President Trump and prosecute President Trump for absolutely nothing. We still don't fully understand what the charges are. So it supposedly has to do with illegal business entries, is what he said. And then Alvin Bragg states that it may be, to find further crimes. This is a weaponization of government, and it is a perversion of the justice system. When a district attorney uses the power of his office to politically persecute the top leading Republican presidential candidate for 2024. And it's election interference. Well, let me tell you, I'm a big believer in our First Amendment. I believe in our freedom of speech. I believe in all of our rights, and I believe in our right to protest. And I think that we should be protesting a government that has been weaponized and is going after people for political reasons, not only to interfere with elections like a presidential election, but also going after people that walked in the Capitol on January 6th, pro-life protesters that are praying in abortion clinics, parents that are trying to hold their school boards accountable, and many other people, even a guy named, his last name's Mackey, that made a meme and put it on the internet in 2016. Yeah. Our government has been weaponized, and protesting is important. And every single one of us have a right to make our voice heard and peacefully protest. And so when I spoke with President Trump on the phone, I told him that I was going to New York to protest. And so that's what I did. Now I want to tell you guys about New York City, and they are nothing like Walker County.
Absolutely not.
Thank God.
First of all, the Mayor Adams warned me at a press conference on television, named me by name, and warned me before I even got to his state. We don't treat people that way here in the South, do we?
No.
Even if we don't like them, we just say, bless their hearts. But that's how the whole thing started. And then, when I did get there, we found out, and it was floating all over Twitter, that they had sent out a Twitter alert, like an actual paid-for, funded campaign. I'm sorry, it was a text alert. And people were getting these text messages that was a call to action, and gave the address of the park and named me by name. Marjorie Taylor Greene is going to be at this park. You need to gather up as many people as you can, wear a mask.
Yeah.
I don't know about y'all, but maybe they didn't find out the COVID emergency is over. Or maybe they're just members of Antifa because they don't wear masks.
Right.
Bring pots and pans and as many things you can to make as much noise as possible to drown out hate. And they said, whistles will be provided. So it cost money to send out a mass texting campaign. So somebody politically funded it. I don't know if it was related to the mayor. So that happened, and then we got down. I said, I'm still going. So we went down. I said, I've got my right, my free speech right, and I have a right to protest the weaponization of government. And we showed up, and that place was busy. Let me tell you, there was a lot of people there. There was a lot of press there, tons of press. But sure enough, there was people handing out whistles, and one of them happened to be an actual government employee, the New York Public Advocate. So I just want you to know that's how New York treats out-of-town visitors. But I want to say I'm really proud of our district because even if if we don't disagree with someone, we still do not treat them that way. Because that's not the kind of people we are. You know, recently Kamala Harris came into town. Did y'all see her? Maybe people saw her. And there were people that did show up and protest, and God bless you for that. But their protest was not anything like the protest that I was greeted with in New York. And I am very proud and thankful for that. They made signs. Their signs were not inappropriate. Their signs were good and their message was good. It didn't have cuss words or horrible sayings. No one hurled insults at Kamala Harris. No one called her nasty four-letter names and all kinds of names I can't say and won't say on this stage. But they did protest her, and they have the right to do that. But I'm really proud of our values here and the values that we display when we're in front of the press or we're pictured, because we display it correctly. We can disagree with people, but we can still do it and represent ourselves in a very classy way. And I'm very proud of this district for that. And I also want to say I thought it was pretty funny that Vice President Kamala Harris decided to come on down to Dalton, Georgia, to try to take credit for Q cells and their solar panels, simply because the federal government had purchased a bunch of their solar panels. You see, when you talk to Q cells and you read all of their statements, they weren't thanking the Biden administration, and especially Kamala Harris, because she doesn't do anything at all.
Right.
They were thanking the local county and the local state officials that helped them open their business, not the Biden administration. But you see, that's how the Biden administration works. They take credit for things they didn't do.
Absolutely.
And to be honest with you, they're not doing anything good in Washington. They're mostly destroying our country.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to dig in here. We have taken lots of questions. See what we've got. Oh, someone wants to know, why am I so angry? Well, I spent about 30 minutes talking to you about it. And I think how many other people are angry about it?
Yeah!
There we go. I think that answers. All right. Someone says, when did you publicly deny QAnon? Have you apologized for your support of that conspiracy? Whoever's asked this question, have they publicly apologized for believing in the garbage like Russian collusion on CNN? For treating President Trump so badly when he was the best president we had. I'll tell you what, any day I'll take some mean tweets and some $1.79 gasoline. Okay, let's see. Well, this one's better. Marjorie, we truly appreciate you and everything that you fight for us. Thank you. We are so blessed to have you representing us. A real vote in D.C. Thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it. Should have brought my glasses. We love you in Somerville. Oh, that's so good. What is your takeaway at this point while in office? Number one, biggest fear. Ooh, that we don't win in 2024.
Amen.
I'm telling you, we gotta have the Senate and the White House. We gotta keep the House, because that would be my biggest fear. If we can win all three, all of these problems can be solved. They really can. They can be solved because President Trump and his administration was solving those problems. We just have to get control back in Washington, and we can do it. Greatest exciting moment. That's tough.
President Trump
No, that one's pretty fun. I'll say my greatest exciting moment so far was taking back the House.
Yes.
Because
And
we
removing
were
people from
finally in control. Greatest personal reward. Oh, both my daughters got married last year, and my baby boy graduated from high school. So those are very. Oh, and my aha moment. Good Lord, I have those practically every day. I tell you what, Oh, that was when I figured out how to ask for recorded votes last Congress.
Hey.
I was like, Congress, I love it. Okay, let's see. What would it take to get you to address gun laws? Common sense gun laws, where people are not crazy, could buy and own guns, but unqualified people would not be allowed to own and carry. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm a very strong supporter of our Second Amendment.
Yeah!
And I love it that we are a constitutional carry state.
Yes!
If you haven't heard my story, in 11th grade, my school became a gun-free school zone because of Joe Biden, and he was a senator. And on the second week of school, one of the kids in my school brought guns to school, and our entire school went on lockdown because the only person in my high school that day was a very emotionally and mentally unstable high school student. They brought guns to school to kill 2 other students in my school. And so I'm going to tell you right now, and I'll tell this story over and over again, I know exactly what it feels like to be a kid in a school where the only person with a gun is a madman that's hell-bent on killing people. And there was no good guy with a gun in my school. So when it comes to school shootings, this one is a non-issue for me. We better protect our kids in school the same way we protect the President of the United States, members of Congress, money, gold, precious jewels, everything. And I will fight that issue with anybody. Because I understand it, and I completely understand it. And I'll tell you something else. The way to stop a bad guy with a gun or a knife or whatever weapon they choose to try to murder you or your family is with owning a gun. Because a well-armed society is a safe society. What are we going to do about currency? Great question. Biden is killing us. Yes, thank you. Great question. We are in big trouble, and we can take politics off the table on this one. The war in Ukraine, the United States involvement in the war in Ukraine, and I'll tell you right now, and I'm very proud of this, I voted no on every single ounce of money sent to Ukraine. Now, I did vote for the original resolution declaring that it was wrong, that Putin's invasion of Ukraine was wrong. I did vote for that. Yes, I do believe it was wrong. But the money going over there has been a tremendous problem, and I warned it from the beginning. What it caused is it has caused Russia and our sanctions on Russia, it's not only the war in Ukraine, it's the sanctions on Russia. Russia has turned to the rest of the world anyone he can find to sell his oil and gas, and he's got an abundance of it.
Right.
Now, in doing so, we have pushed Vladimir Putin and Russia and his oil and gas into the arms of China, who has welcomed him in. And through China, who wants to defeat America, they want to be the #1 world superpower, not only economically, but militarily. And because of that, they have worked very hard to make deals through Russia and other countries, not in the petrodollar, not selling oil and gas and trading in the dollar or petrodollar, They are trading it in the yuan, China's currency, or allowing other countries to say, we'd like to use our own currency. This is an extreme danger. This is outside of politics, because if the dollar falls, that affects every single American. It doesn't matter what you think about President Trump, doesn't matter what you think about Joe Biden, it doesn't matter if you vote red, blue, or you say, I hate voting, I'm not going to have anything to do with it. We are all in trouble. That means that our value, that means the property we own goes down in value. That means the money that we make does not go as far because our dollar has gone down in value. And this is why in Washington, when I'm arguing and talking with my colleagues, I'm constantly telling them the United States should be pushing for peace in Ukraine, not funding and continuing a war with another nuclear-armed nation, Russia. And we need to be working to have good relationships on a global stage in the world so that our dollar can remain strong. We want the dollar to be number one because that's good for America. And my policies and how I feel about all of it is America first. And that means that we need to be strong in the world economy. We need to be number one in the world economy. And we need to never let China pass us. Or worse, take us over. And that's the real danger. As a young parent, school and public safety is a top priority to my wife and I. How can we provide the right for schools to protect our children and to protect the Second Amendment? Also to protect from federal overreach in curriculum and age-inappropriate content. Well, you know I'm standing with you, whoever wrote this. I believe that we have to do everything we can to protect our Second Amendment. We need to urge Washington that they need to understand that schools do save lives, guns do save lives by protecting kids in school. And I want you to know you have a lot of hope in our Parents' Bill of Rights that Republicans passed. That one is tremendous. It gives you the right to control your child's education and not the teachers' union bosses. Yes, bosses are good. But it takes the power away from the teachers' union bosses and gives it back to the parents.
Where it should be.
Right.
That's so much better. Who are we as Republicans going to run for president? What can Republicans do to ensure a fair vote process? Well, we know Donald J. Trump is running. And I have openly endorsed him, and I'm very proud of that. All of you, of course, as voters, have your choices. And you'll see who comes out. We know Nikki Haley is running. Who else is declared?
Doesn't matter.
There's a guy I was five that I can't think of his name. Yeah, he's running. Is he declared? Ron DeSantis has not announced, but it is heavily rumored that he will announce. We'll see what happens there. I'm going to tell you right now. I don't mean to sway anybody's mind. I'm personally endorsing and supporting President Trump, and that's because he brought us in America's policies. And with the problems that we have, I want the strongest guy in the ring, and the world respects him. Our world leaders respect him. Why does the federal government spend more than it receives?
They steal it.
Why so many federal employees? I don't know what to tell you. They're just stupid. I honestly I can't even answer that question. It's not their money.
Exactly, it's ours.
And I tell you, a lot of the bills, and this is what I learned last Congress, many of these bills get voted by voice. They just run bills through, spending bills. So how do you keep up with what you're spending if you're just running them through by voice? It's a terrible shame. big problem. Ooh, this is good. When does impeachment of Biden start? Well, if it was up to your Congresswoman, we would be doing that right away.
That's right.
Actually, we'd already be doing it. Something fun to watch. You'll be interested in this. I'm on the Oversight Committee, and we have subpoenaed the Biden family bank records. Without saying too much, because I certainly don't want to give it away right here at this town hall, you know, when you follow the money, you pretty much find where the problems are.
That's right.
Yep.
And that's going to be the committee hearings to watch. And I believe it will lead to what should already be happening, is impeaching Joe Biden.
Right.
Would you be open to introducing a bill to expand the staff of the Department of Veterans Affairs and let veterans get mental health services faster? I would be for help doing anything to help veterans get help faster. Probably the most heartbreaking stories I hear is when one of our great veterans commits suicide because they couldn't get the help they needed from the VA. That just shouldn't happen. I'll tell you another horrible story I don't like is how 13 of our soldiers were murdered and died over in the withdrawal of Afghanistan. That's the other one I don't like. Shouldn't have ever happened. How can we get the border secured? Build the wall. Build it tall. Okay, how can we open our pipelines? Well, listen, we can. Every single day in America. Not only that, but I find out that kids in school are doing fentanyl, and they're smoking marijuana that's laced with fentanyl, and teenagers are dying. And it happens right here in our district. I'm not talking about border towns and border counties. I'm talking about Northwest Georgia. We can administration, and it's not the Biden-Harris administration. And it's not going to be any Democrat because they want our borders wide open. And I'm telling you right now, it appalled me that we had to vote to end illegal voting and stop it in Washington, D.C. So the only way that we're going to secure our borders is if we get an administration in place that's dead serious about protecting America the same way all of us protect our homes, and that's locking the doors and windows and protecting our homes with guns. That's how you protect America and you secure the border.
That's right.
We have a good immigration system. We have laws, but we have to enforce our laws.
Exactly.
We have to rip the duct tape and the handcuffs off of ICE and our Border Patrol agents and let them do their jobs. And support them for doing their jobs, not shame them and claim they're good-being migrants.
Yeah.
Those are the things. We can bring back the land in Mexico. Trump-era policies really were working. Who will the cowardly Republicans push to prosecute Hunter Biden? I'll prosecute him. They all talk smack but never do anything. I hear you. That is something that's frustrating. Well, Hunter Biden, like I said, he's got bank records. Let me tell you something. There's something called SARS that none of you, I don't think any of you have ever had. I haven't had one. And it is a report, it's actually a pretty bad thing. If you get one on your bank account, you're doing something wrong. And that would be like, let's say you got a wire transfer of millions of dollars from a country like China. Or maybe Ukraine. Or some other foreign country. Because it'd be pretty interesting to be the son of a senator or the son of a vice president, now a president, and get not just one red flag, a SARS report on your bank account, account, but over 150 of them.
Wow.
Yes, and so that's why I'm telling you guys pay attention to our oversight committee hearings, because we have those SARS reports, and I'm looking forward to going into the Treasury Department when I get back to Washington with our chairman of our oversight committee and viewing those, because I think it's pretty important. But what I already do know is that not Joe Biden or Jill Biden, but Hunter and Hallie and Joe's brother Jim and family members have been receiving millions of dollars from foreign countries, not just China, but multiple foreign countries, through consultants for seed money. And there's no company or product that got produced out of that seed money. And I bet they didn't pay taxes on that either. No, so you're right. We do have to do it, but let me tell you, here's the problem. To truly handle this effectively, we have to control the Department of Justice, and we don't. Joe Biden does, and Merrick Garland.
Yeah.
And that's where the balance of power really affects the ability to prosecute real criminals. And that is the very disappointing, unfortunate truth that is frustrating and, believe me, makes me angry. Somebody asks me, why are you so angry? Oh, that's one of them right there.
Yeah, there you go.
Are you as excited to see us as we are to see you? Yes! Thank you for standing up to the establishment rhinos. The McCarthy non-vote would not have happened without you. Thoughts on 2024, is it fixed enough for an accurate election? Gosh, I hope so. I tell you though, there was a really good article that came out on Election Day in November of 2022, written by Darren Beatty. I don't know if you guys know who that is, of Revolver News. He wrote a really good article, and it was about different states that did not fix their elections. And that's where I have a lot of concern. States that, Georgia, we did pass a law here in Georgia. Other states passed laws, but there's a lot of states that did not. And I would encourage you, if you have the time to look it up, but it was written by Darren Beatty of Revolver News. And that's where I think there's still a lot of problems. I tell you what needs to happen though is ballot harvesting. Ballot harvesting, if one side does it, I think the other side should too. It's legal. When is Congress going to make assault rifles illegal? Hopefully, never. And an assault rifle, I don't know what that is. You can have an assault vehicle, an assault knife. You can have an assault fist. You can have an assault rock. But an AR-15 is an Armalite rifle, not an assault rifle.
There you go.
What are your thoughts about foreign-made Chinese medications, which a vast majority of people depend on? Look, I think we should be making all of our medications.
That's right.
I believe our medications, our critical supply medications should be made right here in America. We should have learned our lesson during COVID. Back to the gun issue, it's pretty hard to talk about taking away guns from people that are for murdering 63 million people in the womb.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about people dying, that should have never happened.
That's right.
How do I volunteer, and what can we do day to day to help you? Oh boy, thank you for that. I just want to tell you, first of all, I'm thankful for the support that I have here in this district. It is amazing and wonderful, and you all help me day to day by being who you are and having the values that you have and being the type of people that you are. And I'm proud to represent you. I am. I'm proud to. So that helps me every single day. And of course, the nice, wonderful things you say.
We are proud of you.
How will you combat the 1,000-page bills that are pushed through Congress without proper review. Read them. Reading the bills is like one of the most important things we can do as members of Congress. Reading the bills has given myself and my staff some of the most greatest amount of outrage at the things that are in there. We have laughed harder at some of the things that are in there, been shocked by some of the things that are in there, but reading the bills is so important. That was something that Republicans, we passed in our rules package, is that everybody said, we need time to read these bills to slow it down. So I'm glad that we're doing that. And then also voting on record. I like voting on record.
There you go.
Does the RNC have measures in place to ensure that we get our voters out to the ballot box? I sure hope so. But I don't know that for sure. But I hope so. What can we do as ordinary citizens to help and support what you are trying to do in DC for our district? Y'all can call my colleagues. That would be great. Write them letters and let them know the things that you support. That's
involved
always,
locally.
That's
Local GOPs.
Yes.
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 That always helps, so I appreciate that. And don't be afraid to protest.
That's
There's
right.
nothing wrong.
Amen.
Now, don't do anything violent, but you wouldn't anyways. But
That's
don't be afraid to protest or make your voice heard. I think our freedom of speech is
You can
always.
protest with sweet tea.
Are you still working to free the January 6th? Yes, I went in the jail about a month ago. I took the oversight committee, and anybody. I invited Democrats, Republicans, everyone to visit the jail because they're still in the DC jail. Over 95% of Antifa, BLM rioters, charges have been dropped. And the vast majority of them were bailed out, by Kamala Harris and Ilhan Omar sharing the Minnesota Freedom Fund bail bond link. Different programs like that bailed out Antifa, BLM violent rioters after they were arrested for burning cities, attacking police officers, looting businesses, tearing down federal monuments, attacking federal courthouses. 93 police cars were torched in the summer of rage in 2020. $2 million of damage nationally happened. This is a weaponization of government issue from our Department of Justice and our FBI. They have arrested and charged approximately 1,000 people. Now, I will say I'm not against some of the people that were arrested and charged. If they committed violence, if they attacked Capitol Police, if they damaged property, you know what? If you do something wrong, you're going to have to face justice.
Right.
However, a lot of these people are people that just walk through open doors in the Capitol as if they were tourists, and that is widely been seen on the videotapes. And I believe that our justice system should be fair, but it's not fair.
No.
Because one side's so-called rioters are not being treated like the other side's so-called rioters. And the Department of Justice has said they're going to arrest and prosecute approximately 1,000 to 1,200 more people that were there on January 6th than may have walked through the Capitol. And that to me is wrong. And the fact that there are people still being held in jail and they haven't had their day of trial, they're pre-trial, but yet they are serving time, and time that I saw when I went in there the first time in November 2021, where they were spending up to 22 hours a day in solitary confinement, weren't allowed to get haircuts, couldn't cut their fingernails and toenails, couldn't receive communion or any kind of religious service, were being fed horrible food, beaten by the guards, called horrible names. That's not that shouldn't happen in America. That's what happens, or what I used to think happened in foreign countries, but it is happening in America. And when I talk with men that beg to go to Gitmo over staying in the DC jail, then that's a serious problem. So yes, I am continually dedicated to protecting their human rights and their right to a fair trial, because I believe that's what all Americans deserve, regardless of what they've been charged with. And that's what we have to stay focused on. And I think it's unfortunate that the Department of Justice and the FBI only sees one day and one day's events as being their sole focus, when they completely ignored the vast majority of the Antifa BLM riots.
Exactly.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Would you introduce legislation to expand mental health services in schools? Mental health is an issue that I've been very concerned about, and it is a serious issue. I met with all of our district sheriffs earlier today, and mental health is something that takes up a large part of their time and their resources, and unfortunately a lot of their jail space in every single county. The mental health issues and drug abuse is also driving homelessness, and this is, we used to see homeless people mainly in cities. And tragically, we're seeing homeless people everywhere. We're seeing homeless people here.
Yes.
We're seeing homeless people in rural areas of Georgia all over. And that has a lot to do with mental health and drugs. We used to have mental health hospitals. Milledgeville had one. Rome had another center. But we don't have those anymore. And our children in schools definitely could use mental health resources, but I want to address something else. Too many kids today are prescribed drugs like Adderall. Too many kids today are prescribed drugs, SSRIs, and these drugs have side effects, dangerous side effects. I want to tell you the best thing we can do for kids is be good parents and provide them with a good home. And that's the number one thing. Those are not just my words, that's what every sheriff told me today. When I asked them, we were writing things up on a whiteboard, and I said, how about mental health? If we had federal funding for mental health, federal funding for drug rehabilitation, federal funding for more prison, more jails, and they said, no, none of it would help. The only thing that's truly going to fix the problems that they deal with every day on the job is fixing the problems in the home, and that's something the government cannot do. And that's just me being honest with you guys on what they told me and my personal feelings as well. But I am concerned about kids. Now, if we fund mental health services, let me tell you what the Democrats are going to do. They're going to talk about things like the Trans Bill of Rights, and that will apply to government-funded mental health services. So let me tell you the best way that I think right now, and I'm not weighing in on one or the other, but I don't want mental health services funded by the government that are going to be training people to change their gender.
Exactly.
Or prescribing them puberty blockers that makes them sterile. I'm just not interested in funding that kind of thing. What we need to do is we need our churches to step up.
Yeah. Yep.
Could you hold town halls more frequently? I would love to. I really would. I would love to. Thank you. Why hasn't Biden been impeached? Well, we're working on it.
Because Camilla would become president.
What committees are you on? Oversight, Homeland, and COVID Select. What have these committees accomplished so far? Okay, that's good questions. Homeland, I'm really excited. We're about to have a really good border bill. And that one, I'm very excited about. We're proud of it. On our Committee on Oversight and Accountability, the first one we did was we pulled in the Twitter executives. I don't know if any of y'all were on Twitter, but so many conservatives were censored and canceled. And we talked to these Twitter executives. And I'll go ahead and tell you, when I had my 5-minute turn on them, I told every single one of them that they were canceled. And I didn't want to hear a word out of any of them, but I told them exactly what I thought about them.
Yeah.
And I brought up that one of them, named Yoel Roth, was, I don't know the word I can even use for this guy, because he allowed the proliferation of child porn all over Twitter.
That's right.
And he enabled it, and it was his job to stop it. And I brought that up publicly. We marked up free speech legislation to block the radical DC City Council policies. I know that's hard to understand here in Walker County, but it was important. I already told you about the jail visit. I organized that through the Oversight Committee, and we went to the jail, and we're going to keep going back. On the coronavirus, our subcommittee for COVID, we have already held public hearings, and those you can watch on C-SPAN, into the school closures that were, I think they're unforgivable. Kids are 2 years behind in school in many places. And it's terrible. In the questioning I had with the former CDC director, Robert Redfield, he admitted to me on video that COVID-19 was likely the result of the gain-of-function research.
Yep, it was.
That was during my questioning of him. But that's something we all knew, but it was pretty good to hear that one come from the former CDC director during that time. Let me tell you what's coming up. And I personally invited her because I was upset that when we were doing our COVID select hearing, we weren't questioning certain people that I think we should be questioning. So I had invited her, Randy Weingarten, the AFT president for the school unions. So guess who's coming to have to talk with us on April 26th? Randy Weingarten.
Yeah.
So that was Homeland Security. We went to the border, we had a field hearing at the border, and that's where I learned of the most devastating things that it would take us all night to talk about. That was in McAllen, Texas. And we are continuing to hold hearings on Biden's border crisis. It's not just a crisis, it's on purpose.
Right.
And so we'll continue to do that. I can't wait to get the vaccines on the COVID committee, though. I think that will be important. What common sense gun legislation? None. Sorry, I keep disappointing someone. Most common sense gun legislation is the Second Amendment.
That's right. Amen.
Can we stop the spending and printing of money? God, I hope so.
Yeah.
The communist takeover of our country, I really hope we do stop that, but that's the Democrat Party. Can we impeach Joe Biden? Yes, I really want to do that. And will we impeach Biden? Yes, we will definitely impeach Biden. Will you commit to drafting legislation to enact a law that all teachers must pass a mental psychological test before entering the classroom?
They need that. I'm telling you, I know for years.
How about Congress?
But some of them need that.
I think we should pass it. We should have a mental psychological test for politicians too. Is Georgia going to get rid of the Dominion voting machines? I would love it.
Yes.
I don't know why we still have. Well, we have them because our state has a contract with the company.
Right the phone.
Yeah, that's an issue where my position doesn't allow me to handle anything on the issue because the states control their elections, right? But I'll say as a Georgia voter, I would love to vote on the same day elections on paper ballots. Is there anything you can help my son. Jesus is, oh, Jesus, I'm sorry. Jesus is Jake. Okay. Has been mistreated by the prison system. You know what? My constituent services and my staff is here. If you can go talk to them, then that's something that we can look at, okay? Okay. Thank you. Can you raise your hands? They're right here. And while I've got my wonderful constituent services lady standing up back here, if there's anyone here that has a constituent issue, we handle everything from veterans issues, social security issues, your taxes, any unique problems. Please see them and they can help start a case file for you, and they're delighted to do so. And it seems to be we're in the passport business mostly, so they will also help you if you have any passport issues. Thank you. Marjorie, please don't forget your supporters. I will not, I promise. We're still with you. God bless you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I promise you I'll never, ever forget. How can we help you and thank you? Let's go, Greene. Make sure everybody votes. That's a good thing. And just thank you for being y'all. Are we going to see any results from all the hearings we are having? Yeah, I hope so. Very disappointing that no one is ever held accountable. I totally and completely agree. And we really need to control the Department of Justice for that.
Absolutely.
And again, that requires the White House. Have you heard about very peaceful MAGA protesters being threatened with arrest on Broad Street in Rome, Georgia, the day of Trump's arrest? If not, we would love to tell you that. I have not heard about that, but I would like to hear about that. And if so,
Yep.
This week.
oh, what happened?
So, we had a peaceful protest, American flags, Trump flags. All the signs were peaceful, and the messaging was great. This was downtown Rome. We had the police around us on all sides. They come in and say, "You're not allowed to protest here." They told the veteran that there are protest ordinances in Rome that allow them to have American flag in the streets. This guy.
American flags are allowed anywhere.
His money's been blown apart to get home, right? And so he's here to see the weaponization of our government. He's being told, oh, the flag pole is a weapon. You can't have flags downtown.
This was last week on.
This was Tuesday,
Oh,
wasn't
I
it?
was right.
Yes.
We'll talk to you after.
Okay.
We always protect our First Amendment rights. I don't know if it had to do with a
Yes, I mean that's essentially what they were trying to say. They've written their protest ordinance and said it's so expansive that it's not mine. It's a pretty important precedent.
Okay. Thank you for telling me about that. Why do you want to take away the rights of transgender people? Let's talk about transgender people's rights. Transgender people are the same as all Americans. They have a right to an education. They have a right to vote. They have a right to get a driver's license. They have a right to get a job if they fit the job qualifications that the employer is asking for. They have the right for banking. They have the right for financing. If they qualify, they can get a mortgage and buy a home. They can rent. There are already rights in place for transgender people, the same as there are rights for white people, black people, Hispanic people. Yeah. And let's talk about women's rights. Let's talk about girls' rights. Transgenders, especially biological males that identify as women, are violating women's rights. Not only are they violating women's rights, they are dangerous to women. They're in women's bathrooms, little girls' bathrooms, invading women's sports, destroying Title IX, which women fought really hard for, by the way. Real women fought hard for that. They want to replace women in the workplace. They are so offensive to women, they claim that they get periods and are birthing persons.
No.
Okay, let me tell you something. When it comes to men invading women's places of privacy and the places that we have earned as our rights, I will do everything I can to stop that. And I promise you. Just a note of thanks for all you do. Thank you. It's great follow-up. For this district and for the Republic, I can be found most days defending you fearlessly on social media. Thank you, David. I appreciate that. Those trolls are pretty nasty.
They are.
Is Matt Martin really who we want? Have you voted against school choice? Well, I don't know. I think you guys got to talk about that one amongst yourself, and I don't. Oh, the school choice vote was just recent, right?
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, there were 5 that voted against it. 17. They're going to bring that bill back, aren't they? Isn't that what always happens?
Yes.
I hope our Republicans support school choice. I'll say that. I support school choice. So it sounds like you guys support it. Y'all support school choice? That's a good thing. Having diabetes for almost 39 years, I would like to ask on behalf of the other 1.5 million U.S. citizens with type 1 diabetes, why did you vote against capping insulin at $35? I didn't vote against that. I voted against the Democrats' bill that was on that issue. Unfortunately, pretty much all of the Democrat bills last Congress, they had great titles. And in the news, it would claim they had a good purpose, such as this. I'll tell you where I stand on this issue for diabetics. I believe insulin should be very cheap because it is very cheap to make. In most foreign countries, there's many people that can get insulin for even less than $10.
Yep.
Now, our problem is in our pharmacy industry and the middlemen. What we need to do is we have to cut out the middlemen, and we have to create more competition, and there needs to be insulin available for all type 1 diabetic Americans for much less than $35. That's personally what I believe. But I couldn't vote for a Democrat bill that had other poison pills in the bill that had nothing to do with insulin capping it at $35.
Always right.
Will you take VP Pence's place in the 2024 election? I don't think Mike Pence is even going to be in the running. I'll say that.
Oh, no. He's out.
We'll see what happens in the primary, and President Trump is the one that makes that decision. Let's see. S-686 Restrict Act. The phrase "and for other purposes" is alarming after the Patriot Act went as for us it did.
Restrict that.
Okay.
I read, I was reading on Congress's website about the Restrict Act.
Restrict
And it tells us what it's supposed to be battling against, foreign influences and so forth. But the problem is, at the very end of it says, and for other purposes. What are the other purposes?
Anything they want to add to.
For whatever they want it to be.
Right.
Yes. No, that's the danger.
A lot of Republicans that have signed on to that.
You read that one where?
On Congress.gov.
Oh, on Restrict Act.
Restrict
Okay.
Act.
Thank you. I'll look at it. And for other purposes is too wide open.
It is.
Yeah. It should be more, it should be specific. Sounds like if you're a gun owner, you could fall in the and for other purposes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Sure could.
Yep.
It's like LBJ. Greene's not, you know.
How do you plan to keep CRT out of our schools, but still make sure children are learning true history, no matter how ugly? I tell you what, I would like to abolish the Department of Education. I really want to see education back in control of parents and parents working with their school administrators, people like that are here at this great high school, Lafayette High School. I would like to see that. It needs to be more in control. The federal government has no business being in charge of your education. Alrighty, I have been through the fishbowl, and so with that, you guys, I'm going to wrap it up, and I want to thank all of you for taking so much time with me tonight. It's been great, and I just have to tell you, it's wonderful to be at home, and I'll take a minute to go back to New York. Thank God Georgia is nothing like New York City. We are so lucky to live in a beautiful, beautiful state filled with beautiful towns and beautiful people. So thank you so much. I appreciate all of y'all.